ever since my little brother died of a high fever. While my mother was busy keeping her precious college junior company, I started cutting her out of all our family photos. When my teacher called my dad, deeply concerned after hearing me say my mom was dead, and that I wanted my deskmate's mom instead, my dad just paused. Then he agreed with me. Yeah, she passed away a long time ago. At the school's family sports day, my dad saw me hand the janitor a $10 bill, asking her to be my mom for the afternoon. He did not stop me. Instead, he quietly slipped the woman another $200 to attend my parent-teacher conference. Whenever I needed a mother to show up, my dad would just let me buy one. It took my mother a long time to realize she hadn't heard from us. She finally canceled her endless meetings to pick me up from school, only for my teacher to frown and shut the classroom door in her face. Confused and irritated, she went straight home. The moment she opened the front door, she heard me talking to our building superintendent. My mom is dead. Do you want to be my new mom? Our living room wall was covered in framed photos of my award ceremonies. The woman standing next to me and my dad in every single picture was a complete stranger. Cull, who the hell are these women standing next to you? Phoebe's voice was absolute ice. Her glare could have burned a hole straight through the glass frames. I didn't understand why she was so angry. I panicked, waving my little hands, trying to explain. The building superintendent wiped the sweat off her forehead. Sweetie, why would you say such things? Your mother is clearly still alive. She let out an awkward laugh and practically ran out of the apartment. Hearing that, Phoebe's mouth twitched with sheer rage. She did not even notice the expensive bakery cake she had brought, slipping from her hands and smashing onto the hardwood floor. I haven't been home in 2 months. And you two are telling people I am dead? Cull, is this how you raise our child? Terrified, I rushed forward to shield my dad. Nobody taught me. Don't blame Daddy. I said it myself. Phoebe's face turned completely black. She began yanking the picture frames off the wall, raising her arm to smash them. Then she paused. Her eyes caught the engraved golden plaques on the frames. First place regional champion. Her hands froze in midair. She looked down at me, her expression unreadable. I held my breath, waiting for her to explode. Phoebe had no idea that, ever since she died in that other man's house 2 months ago, my dad had been secretly paying women to act as my mother for every single family event. Hearing the commotion, my dad walked out of the master bedroom. In just 2 months, he looked like a walking skeleton. His eyes were hollow, his steps unsteady. Seeing Phoebe, he didn't scream. He didn't cry and demand a divorce. He didn't grab a kitchen knife and threaten her to choose between her family and her precious junior. He just stared at her with a gaze so cold. It felt like looking at a corpse. Phoebe's rage instantly evaporated. Her beautiful eyes darted away, flashing with a brief moment of guilt. Remembering something, she nervously reached into her designer bag and pulled out a brand new camera, offering it to him with a gentle smile. Kyle, look, this is the new model you've wanted for so long. And I know you want to get back into photography. I already submitted your portfolio to the International Lens competition. My dad stared at it with zero emotion there. There was not a single trace of joy on his face. I recognized it immediately. It was the camera my dad had kept saved in his online cart for 2 years to pay the household bills. He had refused to buy it. When he finally swallowed his pride and asked Phoebe for it, she blew him off again and again. What Phoebe didn't know was that the model she just bought was already outdated. My dad had already purchased the newest one himself. Watching his abnormal reaction, Phoebe's eyebrows knit together. She let out a long sigh, pressing the camera into his hands with a patronizing, indulgent tone. All right, honey, it is my fault. I know you've been heartbroken since Noah passed away, and I shouldn't have argued with you. Just be patient, okay? Things with Oliver are almost settled. Just give me a little more time. A little more time. I clenched my tiny fists looking at my mom with a breaking heart. 2 months, my mom was a liar. She had said that exact phrase 52 times, and she never kept her word. My dad waited for her. He waited while my little brother coded in the emergency room. He waited while his clinical depression spiraled so badly. He started self-harming. He waited until he was completely broken, and she still never came home. Instead, she would just scold him over the phone. Kyle, I told you she is my late mentor's child. Oliver is my junior. Stop being so incredibly insecure right then. Phoebe's ringtone pierced the quiet room. She quickly answered it on speakerphone. A little girl's desperate sobbing echoed through our apartment. Annie, Phoebe, come back. Daddy's head is burning up and he collapsed on the floor. He won't wake up. Then a man's weak scolding voice came through the line. Sophie, why did you call her? We cannot keep burdening her. I scowled, opening my mouth to scream. That is not your mom. She is my mom. But Phoebe's eyes instantly went red. Her voice trembled with sheer panic. Oliver, what are you talking about? I would beg you to burden me for the rest of my life. She frantically threw the expensive camera onto the sofa. Kyle, Oliver might have overworked himself. I need to go check on him. I will explain everything later. Phoebe ran out the door without looking back. My dad and I stood there staring at the empty doorway. We both knew she was not coming back tonight. My dad picked up the camera she left behind and turned it on. The memory card was full of photos. Phoebe, Oliver, and Sophie smiling at theme parks, eating at expensive restaurants. I saw a photo of Phoebe and Sophie laughing on a Ferris wheel. The timestamp was the exact same day. My little brother died in the hospital. I saw a photo of them watching a beautiful fireworks display. That was the night my dad had a depressive episode and ended up bleeding in the bathtub. My chest hurt so badly, I couldn't breathe. I burst into tears. Mom always had time. She just never gave any of it to us. My dad's entire body shook. He pulled me into his arms, his voice hoarse but terrifyingly resolute. Jessica, Mommy is dead, right? I nodded my head vigorously. Something permanently shifted behind my dad's eyes. He stood up, grabbed the camera, and hurled it violently against the wall. Crash. The expensive device shattered into 100 plastic and glass pieces. I knew his heart had just shattered exactly the same way. That night, right before I fell asleep, I heard my dad talking on the phone in the dark. The lead photographer position in Los Angeles. I accept. I will be there in exactly 7 days. Through my sleepy haze, I suddenly remembered something. My dad used to be a globally renowned photographer. Every time he released a print, billionaires and celebrities would get into bidding wars over it. But he gave up his entire reputation for Phoebe, hiding in New York, working a miserable, underpaid job where his boss treated him like garbage. I couldn't help but smile into my pillow. In 7 days, my shining, brilliant dad was coming back. 5 days until we leave. I walked into the apartment after school and heard a massive clatter. Phoebe, who hadn't been home in 2 days, was holding all the trophies and medals my dad and I had won. She was tossing them into a cardboard moving box. The princess dresses my dad saved up to buy me, and my limited edition dolls were all being stuffed into the box. Without a second thought, my brain short-circuited. I looked nervously at my dad. His face was frozen in absolute disgust. His fists were shaking at his sides. Phoebe, are you even human? You don't come home to see your own daughter for 2 days. And the first thing you do is steal her things to give to that parasite and his kid. Phoebe didn't even look guilty. She casually inspected one of my gold medals. A dismissive smile on her lips. Kyle, I don't want to do this either. If you hadn't posted those passive-aggressive photos on Facebook, Oliver and Sophie wouldn't be so depressed right now. Besides, Jessica is incredibly spoiled. What is the big deal about giving some toys to a child who doesn't even have a mother? My dad let out a dark, breathless laugh. His eyes instantly turned red with overwhelming disappointment. I never showed off. Only a filthy mind sees filth in everything. Jessica and I worked hard for those trophies, while you were busy playing house with another man and his daughter. Did you ever stop to think about your own child? I stood there completely numb, unable to understand why my mom had turned into this monster. A year ago, when my dad and I wanted a specific type of traditional pastry, Phoebe drove 300 miles just to learn how to bake it for us. She was ripping our achievements off the walls to give to strangers. My dad took a deep breath. He seemed to see right through her. He pulled out his phone and sent a voice memo to a local journalist who had been begging for an interview. Mr. Davis, I accept your offer for the champion father and daughter feature interview. Tomorrow morning at 7302 Silver Lake Drive. Kyle, what the hell are you doing? Phoebe lunged forward and snatched the phone out of his hand. My dad tilted his head, looking down at her like she was a pathetic bug. If they want the champion's trophies, they better be ready to play the part. As long as Oliver and his kid can handle a live press interview about winning these awards, they can keep them. Phoebe ground her teeth together, letting out a furious laugh. Do you really have to make things this ugly, Kyle? What happened to you? You used to be so generous, so understanding. She suppressed her temper, shooting a dark glare at the movers she had hired, ordering them to take the last box away. Before walking out the door, she gave my dad a look of sheer unadulterated disappointment. I am just borrowing them to cheer Sophie up. I will bring them back when we are done. Call the journalist and cancel it right now. Used to be. I stared at my sneakers, my chest aching. My mom used to be different too. You are not taking a single thing out of this house. My dad started. Daddy. I yelled, cutting him off. I turned to Phoebe and gave her a sweet, obedient smile, shaking my head. It is okay, Daddy. I don't want them anymore. Let Mommy give them to my new sister. A flash of joy crossed Phoebe's eyes. She walked over and patted my head, completely oblivious. See, our Jessica is such a good, mature girl. After she left, I looked at the empty, stripped living room. I walked over to my piggy bank, pulled out a $10 bill, and took my dad's hand. His eyes were completely bloodshot. We walked downstairs to the college student living on the second floor.
Excuse me, miss.
Can I give you $10 to be my mom for tonight? It is my daddy's birthday. The girl looked at us, her voice thick with pity. Did Phoebe? She's dead.
My dad and I said it at the exact same time.
The girl seemed to understand immediately. She followed us back to our apartment. While I was singing happy birthday, right before my dad blew out the candles, his phone lit up with a notification. My dad stiffened. His fingers trembled as he opened it. I peeked at the screen, and the blood in my veins turned to absolute ice. Oliver had updated his social media. The caption read, "Whenever I get angry and break things, she never gets annoyed. He just smiles and hands me more to throw." The attached photo showed my dad's and my trophies, shattered into 100 pieces on their marble floor. My limited edition dolls, the ones I loved so much, I barely even took them out of the box, had their faces violently scribbled over with black permanent marker. Ping, Phoebe sent a message. It was a money transfer for $50,000. My dad tapped the voice memo underneath it. Through the speaker, we could hear the chaotic sound of glass shattering in the background. "Cal, there was a little accident with the trophies. Just take the money and buy Jessica some new ones." Not making a big deal out of nothing. Tears welled up in my eyes, blurring my vision. "But Mom, money can't buy the love Daddy and I put into winning those." My dad squeezed his eyes shut. He immediately took a screenshot of the post and forwarded it to his lawyer, Mr. Davis. "These are photos proving Phoebe's long-term infidelity with Oliver, along with the massive financial transfers she has been making to him. All the evidence is there. Fast-track the divorce proceedings." My dad didn't reply to Phoebe for the rest of the night. Her phone calls came in back-to-back, ringing endlessly.
Cal.
"I am sorry. I forgot your birthday." "Okay, Kyle. Why aren't you accepting the transfer? Why are you throwing another tantrum? Are you out of your mind?" The journalist actually showed up at Oliver's house this morning. "Do you have any idea how humiliated they were? Are you happy now?" My dad read the frantic text lighting up the screen. For the first time in 2 years, he didn't shed a single tear. He just calmly hit the block button. "Mom, you will never receive another message from Daddy again. 3 days until we leave." I sat on my small bed, looking at the bare patches on my bedroom wall where my favorite posters and drawings had once been. My dad was in the living room, packing the last of our clothes into 2 large suitcases. He had sold almost all our furniture online for next to nothing, wanting to leave behind every single physical reminder of our life in this city. Around 2 p.m., the front door handle jiggled violently. Then came a frantic, heavy knocking.
Kyle.
"Open the door. I know you're in there." It was Phoebe. Her voice was shrill, laced with a mixture of panic and boiling anger. My dad didn't even flinch. He calmly folded one of his old flannel shirts, placed it into the suitcase, and zipped it shut. He didn't look toward the door. He didn't make a sound.
Kyle.
"Stop acting like a child." Phoebe screamed, her fists pounding against the wood. "I know you blocked my number.
How dare you?"
"And what did you do to Oliver? He's been having panic attacks all morning because some reporters showed up at his studio asking about stolen trophies. Do you have any idea how much stress you're causing him? His blood pressure is through the roof." I crept out of my room and stood beside my dad, wrapping my small fingers around his wrist. His skin was cold, but his hand was steady. He looked down at me and offered a soft, reassuring smile, gently brushing a stray lock of hair behind my ear. "It's okay, Jessica," he whispered. "She can't hurt us anymore." Outside, Phoebe's shouting continued, attracting the attention of our neighbors. "Kyle, if you don't open this door right now, I'm calling the police. You're keeping my daughter hostage. I have legal custody of Jessica, too." At the mention of my name, my dad's eyes darkened. The warmth in his expression vanished, replaced by a cold, razor-sharp intensity. He walked over to the door, unlocked it, and pulled it open. Phoebe stood on the doormat, her hair slightly disheveled, her expensive designer coat crumpled. Behind her stood Oliver, looking pale and clutching his chest as if he were on the verge of collapsing, and his daughter, Sophie, who was holding a half-broken plastic doll and glaring at me with smug satisfaction. Finally, Phoebe hissed, pushing past my dad into the living room. She stopped dead in her tracks. The apartment was almost completely empty. The bare walls, the rolled-up carpets, and the 2 solitary suitcases sitting by the doorway painted a picture she hadn't anticipated. "What is the meaning of this?" Phoebe's voice faltered for a fraction of a second before her anger flared up again. "Are you throwing another tantrum? Are you trying to threaten me by pretending to pack up and leave?" "Kyle, this is pathetic. You're a grown man. How can you be this petty just because I missed your birthday and had to help Oliver?" Oliver stepped forward, his voice trembling with a rehearsed, fragile sweetness. Kyle, please don't be mad at Phoebe. It's all my fault. I was the one who was weak. If you're angry, take it out on me, not her. But please, don't punish Phoebe. She loves you so much. He actually squeezed out a few tears, looking down at his feet. Sophie tugged on Phoebe's coat, pointing her finger at me. Andy, Phoebe, the mean girl is staring at me again. She looks like she wants to hit me. Phoebe immediately wrapped her arms around Sophie, glaring at me as if I were a monster. Jessica, apologize to Sophie right now. What has your father been teaching you? You've become so selfish and bitter. I didn't cry. I didn't hide behind my dad this time. I looked Phoebe straight in the eyes, my voice flat and emotionless. My dad didn't teach me anything, and I don't have to apologize to a thief. Jessica. Phoebe gasped, raising her hand instinctively as if to slap me. Before her hand could even descend, my dad grabbed her wrist. His grip was so tight that the color instantly drained from her fingers. Phoebe let out a sharp cry of pain. Don't you dare touch her, my dad said, his voice dangerously low. The sheer malice in his eyes made Phoebe freeze. She had never seen him look at her like this. Not when Noah died, not when he discovered her late-night text to Oliver, never. He had always been the gentle, forgiving husband who swallowed his pride. But that man was gone. Kyle, you're hurting me, she whimpered. My dad threw her hand back. Get out of my apartment. All of you. Your apartment? Phoebe laughed hysterically, trying to regain her footing. I pay the rent here. My salary is 3 times what you make at that miserable studio. If anyone is leaving, it's you. But you won't. Where would you go, Kyle? You have no money, no career, and no friends left. You gave all of that up years ago. You're nothing without me. Oliver quickly chimed in, putting a comforting hand on Phoebe's shoulder. Phoebe, let's just go. We don't need to stay here and be insulted. My head hurts. No, Oliver, we are not leaving, Phoebe declared, her eyes scanning the empty living room until they landed on the 2 suitcases. A smirk played on her lips. If you want to play this game, Kyle, go ahead. Leave. Let's see how long you survive on the streets before you come begging me to take you back. But you are not taking Jessica. She is my daughter, and I will not let you ruin her future with your miserable, depressing lifestyle. She reached out to grab my hand, but I stepped back, hiding behind my dad's tall frame. I don't want to go with you, I said clearly. You're not my mom. My mom died when Noah died. You're just a stranger who smells like someone else's house. Phoebe's face turned white. Her chest heaved as she stared at me, her lips trembling with a mixture of shock and sheer humiliation. For a woman who prided herself on her perfect, successful image, hearing her own daughter disown her in front of her lover was the ultimate insult. You ungrateful little brat, she whispered, her voice shaking. We are leaving, my dad said, ignoring her completely. He picked up our suitcases. And as for the custody of Jessica, you'll be hearing from my lawyer. Don't worry, Phoebe. I won't ask you for a single penny of child support. I wouldn't want to take away from the fund you used to buy toys for your junior's child. Kyle, stop this nonsense. Phoebe yelled as we moved toward the door. You think a lawyer will side with you? You're unemployed. I am a senior executive. The court will laugh you out of the room. My dad stopped at the doorway, turning his head slightly. A faint, cold smile appeared on his lips.
We'll see about that.
He ushered me out, and we walked down the hallway, leaving Phoebe, Oliver, and Sophie standing in the empty, hollow apartment. As the elevator doors closed, I could hear Phoebe's frustrated screams echoing through the corridor, followed by the sound of Oliver trying to soothe her. I looked up at my dad. His face was calm, his shoulders relaxed for the first time in years. Are we going to the hotel now, Daddy? I asked. Yes, sweetie, he said, pressing a gentle kiss to my forehead. And in 2 days, we're going home. Our real home. We spent the night in a modest hotel near the airport. My dad spent the entire evening on his laptop, his fingers flying across the keyboard, while making several phone calls in a low, composed voice. I sat on the bed playing with a small, cheap wooden camera my dad had carved for me when I was 5. It was the only toy I had left, but to me, it was worth more than all the expensive limited edition dolls Phoebe had given to Sophie to destroy. The next morning, my dad's phone rang. The screen displayed an unknown number, but he answered it anyway, putting it on speakerphone so he could continue packing our carry-on bags.
Kyle.
Where are you? It was Phoebe's boss, Director Vance, a man who had always looked down on my dad during the rare corporate dinners Phoebe had forced him to attend. But today, his voice was frantic, stripped of all its usual arrogance. Mr. Vance, my dad replied coolly. Is there a reason you're calling me? Where's the portfolio, Kyle? The one for the International Lens Competition. Director Vance demanded, his breathing heavy. Phoebe said she submitted your work under her name to secure the corporate sponsorship for our firm. But the committee just sent a formal notice saying the entry has been flagged for plagiarism. They say the original copyright belongs to the Kyle Vance, the legendary solitary eye of the global photography world.
Kyle, is that you?
Why the hell didn't you tell us you were that, Kyle? My dad paused, a trace of amusement dancing in his eyes. Phoebe knew, my dad said softly. She just chose to forget. She thought my silence meant I had lost my voice. Kyle, please, you have to help us. Director Vance pleaded. If the plagiarism charge goes public, our firm's reputation will be completely ruined. The board is already talking about firing Phoebe. She's hysterically crying in her office right now, claiming it was a misunderstanding. Can you just sign a release form? Tell the committee you gifted the portfolio to her. Gifted it? My dad let out a soft, mocking chuckle. Mr. Vance, those photos were taken over a 10-year span. They represent my life, my sweat, and my tears. They were the portfolio I was going to use to rebuild my life after my son died. Phoebe took them from my study without my permission, thinking she could use my talent to boost her own career and secure a promotion to please Oliver. I will not sign anything. Kyle, think about your family. If Phoebe loses her job, how will you support your daughter? My daughter and I will do just fine, my dad said calmly. And as of yesterday, Phoebe is no longer my family. Goodbye, Mr. Vance. He hung up the phone and immediately blocked the number. I looked at my dad, my eyes wide with wonder. Daddy, are you really famous? My dad knelt down in front of me, taking my small hands in his. A long time ago, Jessica, I used to take pictures of the world. I thought if I captured beautiful things, I could make the people around me happy. But I made a mistake. I stopped looking at the world to look at someone who didn't care about me. But now I'm going to take pictures again.
For you.
And for Noah. And for yourself, Daddy, I said, hugging his neck tightly. You have to be happy too. He squeezed me back, his voice thick with emotion. Yes, sweetie. For us. Later that afternoon, my dad's lawyer, Mr. Davis, sent over a digital copy of the divorce petition. Because of the overwhelming evidence of Phoebe's financial misconduct, transferring over $150,000 of their joint savings to Oliver over the past 2 years, and the medical records showing her neglect during Noah's fatal illness, Mr. Davis was confident. She doesn't stand a chance, Kyle. Mr. Davis's voice came through the speaker. The court will grant you full custody of Jessica, and we are suing for the return of the misappropriated funds. On top of that, the story of her plagiarism is already leaking to the press. Her career in New York is effectively over. Thank you, Arthur, my dad said. We're boarding our flight to Los Angeles tomorrow morning. I want everything finalized by the time I start my new position. Consider it done. Safe travels, my friend. It's good to have the solitary eye back. As the sun began to set over the New York skyline, casting a warm, golden glow through our hotel window, my dad took out his new camera, the latest model he had bought with his own savings. He pointed it at me as I sat by the window, the golden light illuminating my face.
Click.
He looked at the digital screen, a soft, genuine smile spreading across his face. It was the first beautiful photo he had taken in 2 years. We're ready, he whispered. The next morning, the airport was bustling with travelers. My dad and I walked through the terminal holding hands. He looked different today. He had shaved his messy beard, got a neat haircut, and wore a simple, elegant dark coat. He no longer looked like the tired, broken man who hid in the dark bedroom. He walked with his head held high, his steps firm and purposeful. Just as we were approaching the security checkpoint, a loud commotion broke out behind us.
Kyle.
Jessica. I turned around. Phoebe was running toward us, pushing past travelers, her face pale and streaked with tears. She wasn't wearing her designer clothes today. She looked exhausted, her eyes red and swollen, her hair a messy bird's nest. Behind her, Oliver was trying to keep up, looking nervous and clutching his phone. Kyle, please. Stop. Phoebe gasped, catching up to us and reaching out to grab my dad's coat. My dad stepped back, shielding me behind him. 2 airport security guards immediately noticed the disturbance and began walking toward us. Do not touch me, Phoebe, my dad said, his voice cold and devoid of any warmth. Kyle, we need to talk. Phoebe sobbed, her voice cracking. The board, they fired me this morning. They revoked my stock options, and they're threatening to sue me for corporate fraud because of the portfolio. And the landlord, he said we have to vacate the apartment because you terminated the lease. Where am I supposed to go? How am I supposed to live? My dad stared at her, his expression as blank as a sheet of ice. That is no longer my concern. You have Oliver. Let him take care of you. Oliver? Phoebe laughed hysterically, pointing a trembling finger at the man standing a few feet away. His studio is bankrupt. The bank is foreclosing on his house. I gave him all our savings to keep him afloat, and now it's all gone. Kyle, please, you can't do this to me. We've been married for 8 years. You loved me. You promised you would always support me. I loved a woman who loved her family, my dad said, his voice steady but incredibly heavy. But that woman never existed. You let her son die because you were too busy comforting another man. You watched me spiral into depression and self-harm, and you told me to stop being insecure. You let your junior smash my trophies and scribble over my daughter's toys, and you told us to buy new ones with your dirty money. You chose your path, Phoebe. Now walk it. No, Kyle. I made a mistake. I swear, Oliver is nothing to me. It was just, he was my late mentor's son. I felt obligated to help him. I don't love him. I love you. I love Jessica. She reached out, trying to grab my hand. Jessica, baby, tell your daddy to stay. Tell him you want your mommy. I looked at her, feeling a strange mix of pity and disgust. The woman before me was a pathetic shell of the mother I once looked up to. I already told you, I said softly, my voice carrying over the murmurs of the gathering crowd. My mommy is dead. She died a long time ago. I don't want you. Phoebe fell to her knees on the cold airport floor, burying her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking violently as she wept. Oliver rushed over, trying to pull her up. Phoebe, get up, everyone is looking. Cal, how can you be so cruel? She's the mother of your children. My dad looked down at Oliver, his gaze so intense that the younger man instantly shrank back, swallowing his words. If you ever come near my daughter or me again, Oliver, I won't just let the lawyers handle it, my dad said, his voice dropping to a whisper that sounded like a promise of absolute ruin. I will make sure you never find a job in this country again. Try me. Oliver took a step back, his face completely drained of color. He slowly let go of Phoebe's arm, his eyes darting around the terminal, already looking for an exit, looking for a way to escape the sinking ship that was Phoebe's life. My dad turned to me, offering his hand. Come on, Jessica. Our flight is boarding. We turned our backs on them and walked through the security gate. I didn't look back, not even once. As we walked down the jet bridge, I felt the heavy, suffocating weight of New York lifting off my chest. We took our seats on the plane. As the engines roared to life and the aircraft lifted off the ground, I looked out the window. The towering skyscrapers of New York slowly shrank into tiny, insignificant blocks, disappearing beneath a blanket of soft, white clouds. My dad buckled my seatbelt, then reached over to hold my hand. Next stop, Los Angeles, he said, his eyes shining with a bright, beautiful light. Next stop, our new life, I replied, smiling. Los Angeles was everything New York wasn't. It was bright, warm, and smelled of the ocean and blooming jasmine. We moved into a beautiful, sunlit bungalow in Santa Monica, just a few blocks from the beach. The house had a small backyard with a lemon tree, and my dad set up a cozy studio in the garage, filled with high-end cameras, editing screens, and rows of pristine, untouched photo paper. Within a month of our arrival, my dad's return to the photography world became the talk of the industry. He was appointed as the lead director of photography for the Horizon Gallery, one of the most prestigious art institutions on the West Coast. His comeback exhibition, titled The Solitary Eye, Rebirth, was scheduled for the end of the year. The anticipation was massive. Art critics, celebrities, and collectors from all over the world were clamoring for invitations. But despite his busy schedule, my dad never missed a single moment of my life. Every morning, he woke up early to make me breakfast, pancakes shaped like animals or traditional pastries we both loved. He walked me to my new school, holding my hand and chatting about my classes. And every afternoon, he was there waiting for me at the school gates, always with a warm smile and a bottle of my favorite apple juice. One Friday afternoon, as we were walking home from school, we passed by a local community center. A group of mothers was standing outside, chatting and laughing while their children played on the grass. I stopped, watching them for a moment. My dad noticed my gaze. He stopped too, his expression tightening slightly with concern. Jessica, are you okay? I looked up at him, then reached into my backpack and pulled out a crisp $10 bill. I offered it to him with a cheeky, mischievous grin. Daddy, do you think I should hire one of them to bake me cookies this weekend? My dad blinked, surprised, and then he burst into a loud, hearty laugh, the happiest, loudest laugh I had heard from him in years. He scooped me up into his arms, spinning me around while I giggled. No more buying moms, Jessica, he said, his eyes sparkling with tears of joy. From now on, we have all the love we need right here. And I will learn how to bake those cookies myself. Deal? Deal. I laughed, hugging his neck. Our life was simple, peaceful, and full of warmth. We had finally escaped the storm. But back in New York, the storm was just beginning to tear apart the lives of those who had wronged us. 3 months after we left, Mr. Davis called my dad with an update on the divorce proceedings. I was sitting on the living room rug, drawing a picture of our new house, while my dad sat on the sofa, listening to the speakerphone. The hammer has officially fallen, Kyle, Mr. Davis said, sounding highly satisfied. Phoebe's lawyers tried to fight the asset division, but once we presented the financial records showing her massive, unauthorized transfers to Oliver, the judge was furious. She has been ordered to return $150,000 to you. Since she doesn't have the cash, the court is forcing the sale of her luxury car and her personal investments. What about Oliver? My dad asked, his voice calm. Oh, it gets better, Mr. Davis chuckled. Once Phoebe lost her job and her assets were frozen, Oliver realized the gravy train had crashed. He tried to break up with her to find another wealthy target. But Phoebe didn't take it well. She showed up at his studio, threw a massive tantrum, and ended up smashing his remaining equipment. The police were called, and she was arrested for domestic disturbance and property damage. My dad didn't say anything, but I could see a faint, satisfied nod of his head. And there's more, Mr. Davis continued. Oliver's landlord evicted him, and his daughter, Sophie, has been sent to live with her maternal grandparents because Oliver was declared unfit to care for her due to financial instability and neglect. As for Phoebe, she's currently living in a tiny, rented studio apartment in a sketchy part of Queens, working as a low-level telemarketer just to pay her legal fees. She tried to contact my office dozens of times, begging to speak with you. She says she just wants to hear Jessica's voice. No, my dad said firmly. She chose to treat my daughter like an afterthought. She has no right to her voice, her face, or her life. Keep the communications strictly through your office, Arthur. I want the final divorce decree signed by next week. Understood, Kyle. I'll make sure she signs it without any further delay. After the call ended, my dad walked over and knelt beside me, looking at my drawing. That's a beautiful house, Jessica, he said softly. It's our house, Daddy, I said, pointing to the two figures I had drawn in the yard, a tall man holding camera and a little girl holding his hand.
See?
There's no one else. Just us. And we're happy. My dad closed his eyes, leaning his forehead against mine. Yes, sweetie. Just us. And we are very, very happy. 6 months later, the night of the Solitary Eye Rebirth exhibition arrived. The Horizon Gallery in West Hollywood was absolutely stunning. Elegant glass walls, soft warm lighting, and giant, breathtaking prints hung on the pristine white walls. The gallery was packed with high society guests, famous directors, wealthy collectors, and journalists from major publications. My dad wore a tailored black tuxedo. He looked incredibly handsome, his eyes sharp and full of life, a far cry from the skeletal, hollow-eyed man who had walked out of that New York bedroom. I wore a beautiful, emerald green velvet dress my dad had bought for me, my hair neatly braided. As we walked through the gallery, people constantly stopped my dad, shaking his hand, offering congratulations, and praising his brilliant work. Mr. Vance, your piece, The Empty Frame, is a masterpiece, a famous art critic gushed. The contrast of the harsh, cold shadow of the city against the warm, golden light of the West Coast, it perfectly captures the journey of grief and healing. It's absolutely breathtaking. Thank you, my dad replied graciously, keeping his hand protectively on my shoulder. But the real inspiration behind that piece is my daughter, Jessica. She was the one who showed me that even when a frame is empty, you can always choose to paint a new picture. The crowd murmured in admiration, and several photographers snapped pictures of us. I smiled warmly, feeling a deep, overwhelming sense of pride. This was my dad. This was the brilliant, shining artist he was always meant to be. Just then, I noticed a commotion near the entrance of the gallery. A woman was arguing with the security guards, trying to push her way inside. She was wearing a faded, cheap coat that looked out of place among the glamorous attire of the guests. Her face was thin, pale, and covered in poorly applied makeup, trying to hide the deep dark circles under her eyes. It was Phoebe. I am his wife. She was screaming at the guards, her voice cracking with desperation. I am Kyle Vance's wife. That is my daughter in there. Let me in. I have a right to be here. The security guards held her back firmly. Ma'am, this is a private event. You are not on the guest list. Please leave immediately, or we will call the police. The guests in the gallery began to turn around, whispering and murmuring as they watched the scene unfold. My dad's expression didn't change. He didn't look angry, shocked, or panicked. He simply walked toward the entrance, his steps slow and deliberate, with me walking right by his side. When Phoebe saw us approaching, her eyes lit up with a desperate, frantic hope.
Kyle.
Jessica, she cried out, reaching her hands through the gap between the security guards. Kyle, please. Tell them who I am. Tell them I'm your wife. I saw the news. I saw how successful you've become. I knew you could do it, honey. I always believed in your talent. She looked at him with a wide, pleading smile that looked more like a painful grimace. Her hands were shaking violently. Kyle, I signed the divorce papers, but we don't have to do this. We can start over. I left Oliver. I realized he was just using me. He was a monster. You were the only one who ever truly loved me. Look at me, Kyle. I've changed. I'll be a good wife. I'll be a good mother to Jessica. We can be a family again." My dad stopped a few feet away from her. The security guards looked at him, waiting for his cue. The entire gallery had gone dead silent. Dozens of wealthy, influential people were watching, their eyes darting between the legendary photographer and the pathetic, disheveled woman begging at the door. My dad looked at Phoebe. His gaze was completely empty. It wasn't the gaze of a bitter ex-husband. It was the gaze of a man looking at a complete stranger, a mild annoyance that was disrupting his evening. "The divorce was finalized 3 weeks ago, Phoebe," my dad said, his voice carrying clearly through the silent room. "You are not my wife, and you have never been a mother to my children." "Kyle, no. Please don't say that." Phoebe sobbed, tears streaming down her face, ruining her makeup. "Give me one more chance.
Just a little more time."
You always said you would wait for me." "I waited," my dad said softly. "I waited while our son died. I waited while I bled in the bathtub. I waited until there was nothing left of me to wait. The man who loved you died in that New York apartment. You killed him." He turned to the security guards. "Please remove this woman from the premises. She is trespassing."
Kyle.
"No. Jessica. Help me." Phoebe shrieked as the guards grabbed her arms and began dragging her away from the glass doors. "Jessica, I'm your mother. You can't do this to me. You loved me." I stopped and looked at her one last time. I reached into my small velvet purse, pulled out a crisp $10 bill, and walked over to the glass door. I slipped the bill through the gap, letting it flutter down to the ground in front of her feet. Phoebe froze, staring at the money on the floor, her eyes wide with confusion and horror. "Here," I said, my voice sweet, calm, and devastatingly clear. "Take the $10, Phoebe. Go buy yourself a new family, because we don't want you anymore." Phoebe let out a choked, broken gasp, her face twisting into a mask of pure, unadulterated agony as the realization of what she had lost finally, completely crushed her. The guards dragged her away into the cold, rainy Los Angeles night, her desperate cries fading into the distance. I turned back to my dad. He was looking down at me, a soft, proud smile on his face. He held out his hand, and I took it, our fingers locking together. "Are you ready to go back to the exhibition, Jessica?" he asked. "Yes, Daddy," I said, looking around the bright, beautiful gallery filled with people who respected and loved him. "Let's go." Epilogue. The picture of happiness. 2 years later. The Santa Monica beach was bathed in the warm, orange glow of the setting sun. The waves crashed gently against the shore, leaving a trail of white foam on the wet sand. I was running along the shoreline, laughing as the cold water splashed against my ankles. I was 10 years old now, taller, healthy, and full of life. The shadows of the past had completely vanished, replaced by the bright, endless sunshine of our new home. "Jessica, hold still for a second," my dad called out from a few yards away. I stopped, turning back to face him. He was kneeling on the sand, his camera raised to his eye, focusing the lens on me. He wore a simple white linen shirt and shorts, his face tanned and radiant with health and happiness. I struck a silly pose, throwing my hands in the air and giving him a massive, toothy grin.
Click.
My dad lowered the camera, looking at the screen. A deep, soulful smile spread across his face, a smile of pure, uninterrupted peace. He walked over to me, wrapping his arm around my shoulders as we both looked out at the vast, beautiful Pacific Ocean. "What are you thinking about, Daddy?" I asked, leaning my head against his side. "I was just thinking," he said softly, his voice filled with a deep, quiet warmth, "that this is the most beautiful picture I have ever taken." I looked up at him, then back at the golden horizon. We had lost so much along the way. We had walked through the deepest, darkest valleys of grief, betrayal, and pain. But we had survived. We had built a beautiful, shining life out of the ashes of our past. And as the sun slowly sank beneath the ocean, casting a brilliant trail of gold across the water, I knew that our picture was finally complete.